Hey everyone, I'm Haley and welcome back to What the Film School. For today's video, I'm going to talk about my first video freelance fail. When I was a sophomore in college, I signed on to do this freelance video project for somebody that I knew, and since I had my own equipment and editing software, I thought that it would be a great opportunity to make a little bit of extra cash and also get some experience that I could put on my resume. Little did I know how big of a disaster it was going to be. So today I'm going to share that story with you so you can see what went wrong, and hopefully there's things that you can avoid when you start doing your own freelance projects in the future. So this was my sophomore year, like I said, and my boyfriend had a professor that was actually looking for someone to do videography and editing for one of his lectures that he was going to be doing. And I think what actually kind of set me up to fail from the start was that my boyfriend had highly recommended me and said that I was very good at doing this, which I actually wasn't, because I had never done any like freelance video stuff before. It had all been like very simple at-home projects just for my short films, and it had never been for somebody else, and it had also never been for a paid project. So the pressure was on just a little bit. From the get-go, I was totally unprepared. I didn't know what to expect. So I think it was about 2 weeks before I was supposed to shoot this project, and I had connected with the professor, and he told me kind of what to expect. It was going to be about a 2 to 3 hour lecture with him. There was going to be a class of about 30 students, and then he wanted me to edit whatever I recorded and send it out to him so that he could post it online for the students who missed the class to go watch later. I thought to myself, that sounds pretty easy. I don't have to really bring too much. We're going to do a 2-camera shoot, so it's going to be my camera and I'll borrow somebody else's, and it'll go smoothly, right? Those couple weeks went by until the project was going to be filmed, and I think it was like the day before I finally got that extra camera that I needed from one of my friends. I think that the camera was still a Canon because I was using my Canon T3i, and then theirs was a slightly different model, but it was actually a slightly better model than mine. When I turned both cameras on, I noticed that their quality was a little bit better because they had a better lens on, but I thought, you know, it's probably fine. Who's gonna really notice that slight difference? And then the day of shooting, I think it was about 3 to 4 hours before I was supposed to meet this professor at the location, I rented some audio equipment from an equipment rental house. I was renting this microphone that was supposed to connect to the camera, but when I got it all home and I opened the package for the microphone, I realized I didn't have the adapter. I didn't have any way to connect this microphone to my camera or to the other camera. Since I was using DSLRs, the mic that I got was a lav mic, had like a 3-prong insert, and DSLRs only have like the little audio jack for like a small microphone or like the headphone jack. So I was completely screwed, and also completely out of time with no resources to get this adapter because of course nobody I knew had one. I couldn't get one that quickly, and I figured my in-camera microphone wasn't actually that bad and I could probably get away with it. So I tried not to stress too much about it, and it eventually became time for me to head to the location. So I went there with all my equipment, showed up on time. I was all good, and I did my setup, and I actually did tell the professor, I was like, hey, my bad, I don't have the right audio equipment for you, but I'll still pick up good audio. Hope that's okay. And like, he was a little skeptical. I don't think he knew too much about equipment, so he didn't really understand what the problem was completely, which is kind of something that's good and bad about doing freelance work for people who don't know how to do video projects, is that they really don't understand like what equipment you need exactly. I don't think he knew that the quality was going to be a little less, but at the same time, since I didn't know his setup beforehand, it was difficult for me to gauge like how much equipment I needed to bring in the first place. So that's a good note if you're gonna be doing a freelance project for anyone. Gauge what you're gonna need to bring. If you can go to the location first and scope it out, or if you can just ask the person, say like, is there natural lighting? Is there any audio I can patch into? Do I need a tripod? Do I need handheld? Figure that out so that sets you up for a more smooth transition into the shooting. Since I had none of that, I was going in completely blind. I think I was there about an hour before the lecture was starting, so I had a little bit of time to set up everything and kind of gauge where I needed to place my camera. So by the time the lecture was starting, everybody rolled in, and I started to sweat a little bit. I was getting a little bit nervous because I was like, this is gonna be happening. I have to make sure I'm like on top of it for the next 2 to 3 hours so that everything looks good. So we started recording, and things were going fairly smoothly for the first 10 minutes, and then I heard a click. And I looked over and my DSLR had automatically shut off. I think this is still a feature of DSLRs today. I don't know if there's a way to turn it on or off, but at least for my T3i, after 10 minutes or 15 minutes of continuous shooting, the DSLR will just shut itself off as like a power save mode. And that means that it stops recording too. I don't know why the heck it does that, but it was a feature that I had to deal with. There was like a minute or two where I was scrambling because I was terrified that my camera had clicked off. And I had to turn it back on real quick. And then my other second camera clicked off too, so I had to deal with that one. And that was kind of stressing me out a little bit because I was like, there's gonna be like a 30-second gap where I just don't have any way to like connect these two cameras. Because I knew every 10 minutes for the next like 2 hours I had to be focused on the cameras, make sure that they didn't shut off at the same time so that I didn't actually lose like a whole minute of footage basically. Things were going okay. It was, I mean, heading a little bit downhill at that point, but I was still trying to tell myself like, this is gonna be fine. Just do your job and it'll be great. I wanna say maybe about an hour and a half after this lecture started, I was running out of space on my SD card. I think what had happened was, since I was so unprepared and unaware of what I was doing at that point, I only brought like 2 or 3 SD cards with me and they were all under 64 gigs. I think I had like a 32, a 16, and an 8 gig, which is definitely not gonna last you 2 to 3 hours of footage. So my second piece of advice for freelance, be over prepared. Not just with like, cause I screwed up with the audio equipment too, but for your own stuff, definitely invest in extra SD cards. I think that they're a little expensive, maybe about 30 or 40 bucks for a 64 gig, but it is really worth it because it holds a lot of footage. And if you're gonna be doing a long project like that, you need all that space. And also invest in extra camera batteries. I was working with like 2 camera batteries for the entire shoot, and that gets scary when you start to see the little battery go down and you don't have any backup or any way to charge it on you. So I was running out of space on the SD card and we were getting towards the end of the lecture, and I think at that point we were having like a 10-minute break, so I was able to stop both of the cameras, and I actually had to sit there and go through some of the footage from the lecture, and I actually deleted some of the clips off of the SD card to make more space, because I was like, there's no way I'm finishing this lecture when I only have 5 minutes left of recording time. I picked a few clips that I thought like, hey, he could probably live without these. It's probably fine if I cut them out. I think I cut out some questions from the audience and maybe a couple other things that weren't super important. Then we kept on going with the lecture. I was like sweating bullets at this point. I had 3 minutes left of space on my SD card and like 10 minutes left of this lecture, and I was just thinking to myself like, oh my gosh, I've really screwed up. It was really bad. So the lecture had ended. I actually managed to get his closing remarks. Somehow I had enough space on the SD cards for that. And I think I might have told him like, hey, just a heads up, I had to cut some stuff out, but the lecture is like more or less there. And I think he said something like, okay, that's fine. We'll take a look in the editing, whatever. So I, quickly backed up my stuff. I ran home. I was feeling super embarrassed because I was just like, this went terribly and I'm not looking forward to editing it because I know it's gonna be bad. And sure enough, I sat down to edit it, and the parts I had cut out when I had to like delete footage, it didn't look too bad. I was able to do some transitions, and the lecture was still mostly there. So I was like, this could have been worse. I guess. I mean, it looks okay. It doesn't look great, but at least it's there. So I had exported this like 2-hour-long video, and I tried to send it over to the professor. And this is where things got embarrassing again, because the file size, if you don't know, when you try to email someone a large clip of a video, it's not gonna go through because your email can't handle that big of a file. And I didn't really know, again, what I was doing, so I was like, I don't know how to send this to you, not really sure. And he was like, well, can't you just send like clips of it? Like, can't you just do this, can't that? And nothing was working. I think I ended up getting my boyfriend's help because he knew a way to like send large files over via some like transfer website. Finally, I managed to get it to him. After I sent it, I didn't hear back from this professor for like a couple weeks, I want to say. I was starting to feel a little worried. I was like, maybe it was fine, maybe he didn't notice. And I think I had asked my boyfriend, I was like, have you seen the professor lately? Has he said anything? Did he like it? Was it okay? And my boyfriend told me he really did not like what you did. He basically said that the professor thought that the quality was not at all up to the standard that he was hoping for, and he wasn't happy. I was really embarrassed and also really upset with myself because I knew how much I had screwed up, and I felt like just everything was kind of crashing down, and I was just really ashamed because I was like, I'm going to film school, I should be really good at video stuff, why was this so bad? So I emailed the professor and I said, I heard that you didn't really like it, I'm so sorry. If there's anything I could do, just let me know. Like, if you have any critiques for me, give me a heads up. Again, he basically just said like, yeah, I didn't like the quality of it at all, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was pretty disappointed. I told him, you know what, I completely understand. That was all on me. I tried to treat it as professionally as I could because that was the best option at that point, because what was done was done. There wasn't really any way to salvage any of the lost footage. There wasn't really a way to salvage how the quality looked. So I basically told him, because it wasn't as great as he thought, I will cut the price down. Because he was still paying me for it, even though it was crappy. I mean, I still did the work for him and I put that time in. So I told him like $80 is fine. And I think that's all he paid me, was about $80 for it, which in retrospect isn't terrible. You know, if you want to break that down, that could be about $40 for shooting, $40 for editing. So I made like a slight profit, but at the end of the day, it just didn't feel good. Looking back on it now, again, as I always say in these videos, everything is a learning process, especially when you're going into video and especially if you're doing it for the first time, because it's really, really hard on you to expect that you're going to be perfect. Always expect that there's going to be something unexpected to happen, and in this instance, there was a lot of unexpected stuff. But now I know that all of that can be avoided because, like I said, prep way ahead of time. Always have extra equipment on you, extra SD cards, extra batteries. Always make sure that you're checking if the equipment actually fits with your camera. So if you're renting equipment, make sure it all works together, test it out ahead of time. And again, make sure if there's a way that you can look at the location you're gonna be shooting in, see if you need to bring in lights or extra audio equipment or anything. If you think your quality is not that good to start, don't beat yourself up about it. I still do freelance stuff today and it looks way better than it did a couple years ago. So just keep in mind that the more that you do it, the better it'll get. And again, if you're doing freelance stuff for the first time, don't let this video scare you. Like I said, it is going to be a little bit of a learning curve and you're definitely going to be learning in the process and on the job. But ask people for help. If you know somebody who's done freelance video projects before, definitely get their input and definitely be sure to communicate with the person that you're going to be working for and filming, because once you establish a little bit of a better relationship, you can kind of set up expectations. And there's no shame in saying like, hey, I'm just an amateur, I just want to give you a heads up. So thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope it was helpful to you. Again, if you have any advice for anybody who's looking to freelance, if you've done projects before, or if you've had any fails or successes from it, leave comments below. Let us all know what worked for you or what didn't work for you. And also don't forget to go over to my blog, wtfilmschool.com, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!